Hello, this is Carrie Margret from the Create Love podcast, and I have such a treat for you today. My good friend Rohit Juneja from the Spiritual Wisdom Channel, author of Loving Soulfully, and spiritual counselor, coach, and therapist. Thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be here with you. I have loved your work and your energy and the way you are, and it is such an honor to speak with you today.
Welcome to Create Love with Carrie Margret. I'm here to help you find and create the story of you, your authenticity, your love, your life. We live in a shifting culture where men and women don't know how to act, to find authentic self-expression, connection, and love. Let's remove the fear around expressing femininity and masculinity and come to a greater understanding of each other and build connection based on authenticity and attraction and being a team instead of adversaries. There's room for every type of life story and love story. You get to be the hero of your own story. Let me walk with you to create understanding, face fears, deconstruct attraction and passion, heal old wounds and grief, and show up as the person, lover, partner, and friend that you are here to be. I'd kind of like to jump right into something that we were talking about pre-interview. And we're on the cusp in so many ways of transforming socially, and in one of those ways is really how we relate in relationships. And I wanted to there's so much possibility in that for us to step into new models and new ways of relating because everything is shifting anyways. And I wanted to ask you your thoughts on that and what it means to really live soulfully in a relationship.
Let me start with your last question, really, which is what does it mean to live soulfully? Because unless you learn to live soulfully, you won't know how to love soulfully. And so where it starts with is this, learning to connect with who you are. Most people talk of self-love today, but I think before you even get to self-love, you need to find the self. Who am I really? And that's the most ancient question and the question that spiritual seekers and teachers have been talking about since the beginning of time. That's just the beginning point, right? So peeling away the layers of who you think you are, your mind, your thoughts, your body, your achievements, your possessions, everything, peel that all off, and then you come to who am I? You come to the true self, that which there existed with the moment you were born and will leave your body when you die. That self. So by meditation, you can access that. Now, as you begin to access that, you take that part of you and bring that into your awareness and experience it fully, deeply. And as you do, you'll notice how amazing you are. You'll experience yourself as a source of love. And that's the beginning of the journey. Now, when you want to translate that into loving yourself, it's going to look very different than modern day ideas of loving yourself. And when you bring that into relationship, that's going to look extremely different than what we think of in relationships.
What do you think that looks like in terms of that deep love of self and then that deep love of other in relationship?
Start with this possibility that love is not something outside you. Love is not something someone can give you. Love is something that you are. That experience happens when your mind is quiet. Now, as you feel and experience who you are without your thoughts, without your body, just being in a deep trance-like state. Now, you'll say, well, that's difficult to get to. I agree, it is difficult, but it can be done with practice. It's been done by millions of people over thousands of years and is very doable. It is learning to tame the mind. I did a whole series on that called Mind Unleashed, helping people how to tame their mind even before they get into meditation. So, anyways, once you have that experience, you experience this love that is radiating from inside you. It's like this energy that is already here. It's not. It's like looking for your keys when your keys were already in your pocket. You're looking for love, but love was already here, waiting for you to tap into it. So the impulse for love was really an impulse for you to find yourself. Once that happens and you experience yourself as a being who is radiating love, you now turn that towards yourself. What does that really mean? Love is not about loving yourself because you're perfect or because you've got it all together. No, in fact, we were designed very deliberately to be imperfect, to be flawed. Because only in a state of flawedness, of imperfection, can we learn how to love unconditionally. And that is the journey of this creation. That's what I've come to believe. And so in our flawedness, we now radiate love and acceptance. And we love and accept ourselves as we are, whether we're young or old, fat or thin, whether we are balding or we've got beautiful hair, whether you've got a great body or your body's out of shape, it doesn't matter. You are lovable and adorable as you are. But that experience cannot be done with your mind, cannot be had with your mind. That experience is purely an experience from the soul, because the soul is non-judgmental in nature. The mind is judgmental by nature. The mind is dualistic. It sees things in terms of good and bad, right and wrong. But the soul doesn't. It is non-dual. And because it is non-dual, it is also easily and effortlessly non-judgmental. And so from there, you can begin the process of true acceptance of yourself. It's a wonderful journey.
I love everything that you shared there. And I love the piece as well about it being something that's very doable, that millions of people have done for thousands of years. I think that culturally there is this narrative, and even in somebody who's starting off in meditation or different mindfulness practices, that there is really no way to calm the mind. And I, from my own experience, I've had a different experience in terms of that over many years, my mind there has been more of a calmness and a stillness and an ability to be present to myself or to the moment, to another, without being in the mind. Just being present to the actual moment, whether that's through deep listening, whether that's through, shared play, intimacy. That's a beautiful place to be outside of your head. Beautiful place.
Right.
Cooking food, creating art. I find that even, when I'm creating art, I'm not really in my thinking mind. And so there are all these different places and pauses that I think people who are listening to this can actually pull to and think, oh, yes, there was a moment that there was a stillness. Yeah. There was a moment that there was an opening. And maybe this idea that it's so impossible is a little bit of a false idea, that the listener might actually already be experiencing these moments of stillness.
Carrie, what I notice is that every human being has experienced moments of stillness. You know those moments when you were in nature and you felt peaceful? You were experiencing yourself. Those moments when you fell in love, you were experiencing yourself. Those moments when you were in throes of an orgasm or you were experiencing some wonderful food, you were experiencing yourself. You thought you're experiencing the other, but actually you were experiencing you. And so that's you begin to realize this more so when you start to meditate. Now, I belong to the school of failures who failed thousands of times in meditating. Yeah, I tried for years. I was even a monk. I was, for many years rising early in the morning and meditating for hours, but my mind was everywhere except where I needed to be. It was just not getting quiet. And I gave up. And at some point, after having given up, one day I was just driving down the freeway, and it just happened, like just boom. Suddenly, it's all quiet in here, and I'm just like an observer. I'm observing the road and listening to the music, and it's like, what? All that hard work I put in and nothing happened, and now I'm doing nothing and it happens? Like, so my takeaway from that was, it's easy. I've been telling myself it's hard. I've been telling myself only a few people can get there. That's my story, and it isn't true. So when I start with the idea that it's easy, that it's that dimension exists within me already, it's not something I need to achieve, it's not a place I need to be, something I need to become, but that it is who I am. And when I start with that assumption, it becomes a lot easier to get there. Right? It's just an alternate universe that lies within me, and I can slide right into it. It's not a mountain I need to climb, but a valley I need to fall into. That analogy has really helped me. So coming back to self-love, I think the first steps I took were to really experience this energy that I felt within myself all around me, in nature, in the sun, in the moon, in the stars, in the waves, in the wind, everywhere. And then I began to realize that I'm living in a universe that is abundant with love, that the energy of this universe, like we've all heard that everything is made of energy, right? Okay, but what is this energy? In the ancient Vedas, which I study, which talk about this a lot, they say that energy is God. It's the divine that is present everywhere, in everything, and in everyone. So that divine energy can be experienced. Now you may say, well, oh, that's just a theory. No, when you experience it within yourself in a certain way, and then you experience it outside yourself, and you notice, there's no difference between what is here and what is there. It's the same frequency. You feel peaceful, you feel uplifted, you feel light, you feel inspired, you feel energized. These are all symptoms that you're there, you're experiencing. You feel joyful, you feel loving, you feel kind, you feel open-hearted, you feel like it's ecstatic, right? And so this experience, as you now take it from the inside to the outside, and then you come to people, because people are the hardest. They're the hardest because they're so complex, right? And they've got so much going on. So if you've practiced the first parts, and then you've also practiced the experience of loving yourself in a place of non-judgment, now you're ready to take on people. Now with people, you've got to practice this, really work at it, because your mind will tend to come in, old habits will tend to come in. And so it's a real discipline of really staying grounded and centered. Your ego will want to come in. You will want to be right. You will want to prove yourself. You will want to defend yourself. And I'm guilty of all the above. I've done it. It's been a process of learning to catch myself when I go there. And it's been a process of learning, of falling on my face so many times. I mean, right, you can say, oh, you wrote the book Loving Soulfully, and so you should know all this. No, that was my instruction manual. That was the download, the insights that I was getting as my mind was quiet, and I was asking, okay, why is my love story such a mess? Why am I not finding the person that I want to look for? And I realized it's not about finding the person. It's being the person who can be a true lover, a soulful lover. And what that means is that you're able to love from your soul and not from your ego. See, egoic love is what most of us know. When you have that checklist of yours, that's egoic love. When you think people should do things a certain way or should not do certain things, that's egoic love. You're trying to control. Your ego is trying to shape the narrative. Right? And because of that, it's creating a mess. Whenever you create a mess, whenever you find yourself angry, upset, hurt, your expectations have come in, that's the ego. And so when you begin to recognize that, okay, my ego is kicking in, but what happens when my soul kicks in? When the soul kicks in, there's a total acceptance of the other. However they are, whatever they've done, no matter what the problem is, I love you anyway. I love you as you are. I love you no matter what you do, no matter how quirky you are, or silly you are, or how crazy you are. I love you. And that's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts to it.
I love so much that you shared in sharing all of that. And one thing that really stood out to me Well, there are many things. One thing that I want to comment on is this idea of accessibility of it, and that for the listener, that spirituality or being present, all these things are not these elevated things that only certain masters get to over a period of time. It's there are these moments that we have access to, throughout our entire life, and it's really being able to notice that those moments of expansiveness and the feeling states of love and kindness and light, that kind of light energy in those moments that you're already having. And I love that so much, because I think that sometimes we put these ideas that or out there are these ideas that there's an elevated place to get to. And I believe that, presence and love and experiencing our souls are with us the whole time, from birth all the way to the end of our lives, just like self-actualization. There's Maslow's hierarchy of needs and self-actualization. And one of the things that I find really interesting is that once somebody's most basic needs are taken care of, that they're not hungry and they're not cold, they are going to go about self-actualizing activities all the time. The children that just playfully will go and create a soccer ball out of nothing and start playing soccer, and then somebody else starts drawing, and the creative flow out of children and out of people are always self-actualizing. They're always doing things in terms of their tendencies, and they're always coming in and out of moments of presence. Mm-hmm. So I see that so much of what you share and the richness of all of that is in this allowing ourselves to have more and more of those types of moments.
Yeah, it's like a muscle that can be trained. And once you realize that it's not something mystical, but it's actually something practical. And I'll tell you the key to it all. The key to it is one word. In Sanskrit, the ancient language, they call it dhyan. Dhyan means focus. It's about learning to focus your mind in a world that is now distracted by your notifications and by this and by that and so many things to do and events to go to and places and all of that. Learn to focus your mind on one thing, whether that thing is the food you're eating, whether it's the shower you're in, whether it is any activity you're engaging in, whether it's walking, whether it's kissing someone, whether it's hugging someone. Whatever it is you're doing, learn to focus your mind on that and that alone. What will then happen is the mind, which was occasionally experiencing these moments randomly, and it didn't feel like it made any sense as to how they happened, moments of joy, moments of upliftment or inspiration, now it becomes something in your control. You can access it at will. You can access that flow state, that state of peace, that state of calm at will. But it is a muscle that needs to be exercised. This practice of focus. The more you do it, the more intensely you'll be, the more you do it, the more easily you'll be able to get there. And you'll find that you can stay there for longer and longer periods of time. Now imagine doing this with a partner, that as you're listening to them, you're truly present. You're not putting in your own stuff. You're not giving your justifications. You're not giving your explanations, but rather you're truly, truly listening. As you're touching them, your entire energy is on your fingertips, and you're able to touch them with a deep sense of connection. As you're kissing them, as you're making love to them, you're doing the same practice. But see, if you hadn't practiced it on your own, you couldn't do it with another. It wouldn't come to you. You'd still be scattered. You'd be thinking of your work while you're with somebody else. And if you're in a conversation or you're being intimate, you wouldn't be fully there. So the practice has to take place even when you're not with somebody. Now, I know that we live in a world where there are lots of distractions. Yes, and so we need to balance things out. Take moments out during the day to focus yourself. Just 5 minutes. Go out, just be in the sun, just take it in. Disconnect from everything, then learn to get back in. You'll find yourself more refreshed, more energized, and more competent at what you're doing. You'll actually bring a lot of energy to your life. We wait for other people to give us energy, but that's not how it works. We need to be able to bring energy into our relationships, into our work, into our creativity. But how do you bring energy? Where do you get it from? You learn to tap into it from the source of energy. What is that source of energy? It's all around you. It's all of nature. It's all the elements. It's within you. So be the source of that energy and bring that energy to your relationships, to love. And then watch the magic of what happens.
Such a beautiful share. Talking about magic, there was a piece from Loving Soulfully, The Key to Rising in Love, that I wanted to share. Do you want to read it?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's out of your own voice.
This is from a chapter or a section called Love is Intimate. There's many different aspects of love that are talked about out here, but I think you've chosen the juiciest of them all. So. Love is intimate. Intimacy unites heaven and earth. So just in one line, what it's really saying is when you're intimate with someone, you are bringing heaven to earth. You are creating a union, not just with another person, but with the experience of the divine or God. You're experiencing, which the energy you're experiencing there is very sacred, not because it's some religious thing, but because it is of a different frequency, it is of a different quality. And that quality is what we call divine. That divinity is what some would call God. It's up to you how you want to, whatever name you want to give to it, but recognize that frequency. The deeper you dive into your beloved, the more you relish each other's body, mind, and soul, the more you will discover the goddess and God in each other. You were asking me earlier, can this be done in casual sex? And I said, no, it won't happen. You need a depth. You need an intimacy. You need a place where you can really see this person, know them with all their flaws. The more deeply you know someone, the more you know what's not okay with them, right? And the more you know what's not okay with them is where you now get to practice loving them as they are. So therefore, this cannot happen in some casual encounter. But it is in loving them as they are, in diving deeply within them. And I don't just mean this from a physical place, I mean this mentally, spiritually, diving deep into accepting them at every possible level. Then you will find that you will experience the divine or God within them. Many people say, I'm God, you're God, we're all God. But I'm sorry, I disagree with that. We are particles of that divine. We are expressions of that divinity or God. We are not it. We didn't create the universe. So I can't take credit for that. Love is the religion of God. I deeply believe that. Most people think that religions somehow define God. I completely disagree. I think God has no religion, and that if God did have a religion, that religion would be love. And not just love that says, I love you, but not you, and not a separatist religion, but a religion that says, I love all of you. I love the saint and the sinner equally. This is the way God loves. This loves the saint and the sinner equally, loves the good and the bad equally. It doesn't matter how crazy you are, what horrible things you've done, or how you look. It doesn't matter. This is where we've got to understand that love has no mind, no discrimination, no sense of separation, that it is truly all-encompassing. That is the way of God's love. And if we want to incorporate that love can come from our soul, and we can learn to experience and love each other just like that. Adoration is the prayer that opens the heart. So when you adore something or someone, it opens your heart. Now notice when you start finding fault with someone, it closes your heart. When you start telling them what's not okay with them or what they should and should not have done, it closes your heart and you begin to quarrel and fight. And what's the way out of those quarrels and fights that you have with your partner? Adoration. Look into their eyes, snap out of your ego, and say, I love your smile, or I love your eyes, or I just love the way you swish your hair, whatever it might be, right? Something some quality, and you just snap out of your mind and you're now in your heart. And suddenly adoration has opened up the heart. Sensuality is the meditation that invites God. So what is it you're doing when you are being intimate with your partner? You are inviting God to make love to you and your beloved through that energy, to bring you and weave you into that divine energy, so that that which you're engaging in transforms the physical into the metaphysical. You're transforming matter into spirit. That's really what's happening when you're being intimate with someone. And so therefore it's a very sacred task that you're undertaking with another being. Romance is the foreplay that arouses God. Orgasm is the ecstasy that incarnates God. Love is the doorway to oneness with God. So it's such a profound lesson to understand that love is not about finding the one. The one is the source of all. The one we've been looking for. We create this idealized notion, this romantic notion of finding someone who is the one. I don't recommend that at all. I find that to be a path that has led to so many broken hearts and so much disappointment, because you took someone, put them on a pedestal, thought they are the one, and it turned out they weren't. In fact, no one can be the one. I'll go so far as to say, no matter how much you idealize them, no matter how great they are, no matter how wonderful they are, they'll never be the one, because no one is perfect. No one is ideal. We all have flaws. So if you want to find perfection, if you want to find the greatest love of all, then that love is divine love. Now, does it just have to be with some cosmic character that we call God, or can it be really human, and can that be incorporated into our lives? I believe it can. You can bring that love into your relationship, into your connection. You can bring spirit into matter and thereby transform matter into spirit. That's the challenge. This is the alchemy that we're here to do, is to transform matter into spirit. What do you think?
Oh, that is so beautiful and so true. The alchemy of transforming matter into spirit.
Right. This process of transforming matter into spirit is really something we do with ourselves, with our homes, with our partner, and with everyone we meet. It's not just about being intimate with someone. It's about a way of life. It's about everything we do. It's about weaving spirit or God into everything we do. See, God is not just found in a temple, a church, or mosque, or some other place. God is in every atom of the creation. And therefore, everything we do can be an ecstatic moment. There does not have to be. So, the only thing that separates us from that experience is our mind, our thoughts. And sure, we've got to be there sometimes. There's things we need to do. There's places we need to go. There's bills we have to pay. And fair enough, at that point, you've got to be in your mind. That's what it's meant for, just like your computer is meant for certain things. So you use it for that. But you don't let it use you or control you. You use it for what it's needed for, then you put it aside. Picasso had a beautiful saying. He said, "When I go in to paint, I leave my mind outside the door. Just as people," the door of his, so let me start this again. Picasso would say, "When I go into my studio to paint, I leave my mind outside the door, just as people leave their shoes outside a temple or mosque." That's a practice in those places. So in the same way, he says, I leave my mind outside the door. So I recommend doing the same thing when you come into your relationship or with your beloved, or when you want to connect with somebody, leave your mind outside the door and enter empty-handed. Enter with a blank canvas, ready to receive them, ready to create a moment, ready to create that very experience that is about to unfold, which you have no idea what it's going to be. It's a mystery, and it's a fascinating experience that is about to happen.
That is so rich. Embracing the mystery. You know, there's been a lot of uncertainty in the past few years with things changing culturally and the pandemic. I think that the other side of uncertainty is mystery. And there is such a beauty and romance and adventure and embracing uncertainty that way and embracing the mystery. Because really most moments are magical moments. You know, the uncertain moments that sometimes where scary things happen or various things like that actually tend to be a minority of the time. They're a very small period of the time. And then our nervous systems can kind of like grab onto that experience and then carry that experience with us and feel this fear of uncertainty and fear of the mystery, fear of romance, fear of intimacy, fear of connection, fear of other, fear of self. And when most of the uncertainty is mysterious and magical.
That's the shift we've got to make. Uncertainty is the very nature of existence. We do not know what will happen in the next moment. We have no idea what the next moment holds. You can predict and try, the mind is trying to predict all the time as to what might happen. And that's where anxiety comes from. So if you stop the predicting process and you just walk with one step after another without trying to predict anything and just marveling at whatever's showing up, you live in that place of fascination and wonder and excitement and thrill, because it's like a movie that's unraveling in front of you. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how it's going to turn out. And you're just, you're in the experience of it. So if we live our life trying to create certainty, we will also create deadness at the same time. Whenever people try to create too much of safety, too much of security, they also create a feeling of being trapped in there. They've created their own little prison walls. So just as boundaries are very important things to have, but if you have too much of them, it can become a prison. You won't have any interaction with anybody, right? You can be so safe sitting in your house all by yourself, and you're going to find yourself looking at four walls day in and day out. So it's important that we recognize that there is flexibility required. We've been given the most incredible boundary of all, and that is our skin. It's so thin. It's not like a cement concrete block. It's thin and it's very pliable. And so imagine if you create boundaries that are thin and pliable and flexible according to time, place, and circumstance, according to what's necessary in the moment, being in touch with yourself and knowing exactly what is required now. So in all of these, you begin to learn that we have to be very, very present to life as it unfolds, rather than being in the projection of what might happen or might not happen, because you never know. That part is unknown. And when you stay with the moment and the experience that is happening here and now, you'll experience this thrill of life surprising you and giving you all kinds of wonderful little ups and downs, that, the unexpected stuff. Something gets burnt and something gets, it turns out to be great, and something gets messed up, and all of it is exciting. When you embrace all of it, then then life becomes an adventure rather than a struggle.
What are your thoughts about that in partnership and staying open to all of the magic in partnership as well. Not just in life as we go out, but in romantic partnership. I mean, one of the things that we talked about before is this idea of how the mind holds on to these constructions about people, and the mind can bring in this idea of like judgment, or making our beloved wrong, or an expectation that they're going to start to do something in a certain way, rather than being in the unfolding of letting people surprise us.
Right.
Even, years in to relationship.
Yeah. We seek predictability. It's a survival mechanism. It's a way of trying to cope with the uncertainty of the world. And that very predictability becomes the death of love. Because love thrives in uncertainty. Love thrives in its ever-changing nature. When you begin to study love, you realize it has a particular nature. When you study the mind, you'll understand it has a particular nature. And the nature of these two is diametrically opposite. They work really differently. Love is an adventurer. Love wants newness and excitement and freedom and all kinds of things that the mind doesn't want. The mind wants sameness and safety and comfort and ease and all of that stuff. It's all right. It's not bad to want that. Right? It's doing that because it knows that, okay, this body is perishable. I need to protect this organism that I'm in. Perfectly acceptable. But however, when you want to walk into the realm of love, when you want to experience yourself as a being who is alive and vibrant, well then, it's a whole different dimension. That dimension is the dimension of the soul. And because the soul cannot die, it has no fear. It is not worried about what is going to happen in the next moment, because there's nothing to be worried about. There's nothing to fear. You see, we live in two different realities simultaneously. And that's why it's so twisted within us. There's a struggle within us. On one hand, we want freedom. On the other hand, we want safety. You see couples struggle with this all the time. Don't tell me what to do. On the other hand, they want a certain sense of reassurance, right? I want to know that you're going to be there for me. So I want a committed relationship. But then don't tell me what to do. It's like, you go back and forth with these things. But what's really going on is this. We are in two different parts that are so radically different that we need to learn how to bring them together. How do they work in harmony? How does love integrate with this human organism that we live in? Because love's needs are very different than the human organism's needs. The human organism wants to hold on to someone. Love wants to go and experience all kinds of new things and adventures and experiences. Love is not afraid. Love has no limitations, but the human body does. So now we've got to learn how to bring that together. So that's where partnership comes in. That's where deep commitment comes in. We now learn to go, we take the nature of the soul, which wants to go wide and travel all over, and we take it deep instead. And we go to the depths of the adventure of each other. And so now that begins a whole different kind of newness. I discover my partner new every single day. If I think I know my partner, then the game is over. Love will be over, because now I know you. But if I keep discovering new things about you every single day, and if I'm looking keenly, observing, finding new aspects, then my experience of you becomes richer every single day. In fact, in every single moment of our interaction.
Yeah. Also, I mean, with when your partner is growing continuously, when we're committed to our own growth, and then our partner is growing, then there always is a new person to explore.
Yeah.
That one of the shared values that I have even in friendships is growth. And I've really found over time that when I commit the most to my own growth, and then commit in a relationship with people that are growth oriented, then I'm always surprised.
Yeah, I always tell people you never know who you're going to meet. When it comes to me, you never know who the next part of me is going to be, the next incarnation, the next avatar, the next aspect of myself that's going to emerge over the coming years. You do not know. The ones who knew me 10 years ago and 15 years ago and 20 years ago, they wouldn't recognize me now. I look different, I sound different, I talk different, I behave different. And I really truly believe this process of constantly re-examining and revitalizing and re-energizing yourself, and it really begins with having the flexibility to think differently, to shift your thoughts, to shift your perspective, to not buy into any version of reality or truth or any of these things. The moment you buy into something, you're locked in it. The moment you think this is how it is, this is how it should be, you're locked in it. That thought that has got hold of you has now trapped you, and it will keep you stuck there. Now imagine being able to shift your thinking every moment you get. That's why I love having conversations like this and people like you, Carrie, is because you open up the doors to new possibilities and new thought and new dimensions. And with that, I change, I grow. I learn new things, things I never knew before. Isn't that your experience as well?
It is my experience as well. And I want to ask you your thoughts on meeting people, even expanding it into friendship and all different connections, because this kind of spontaneously came up for me because it's really interesting. I think that when we met each other, when I met you, there was a definite sense of a knowing. And I find that in those types of playing in with intuition, when I listen to my intuition and there is a sense of knowing, and all different types of relationships that I have in my life, they end up being the people that I can grow with on all different levels. But you were talking earlier about people not necessarily using the right tools to find good partners. And I wanted to talk to you about that, your ideas about the right tools in terms of, or good tools in terms of finding a good partner, and the role of intuition in that as well.
The main tool most people use in finding the right partners is the wrong tool. They're using their list of things, they're using their attraction, they're using factors that have nothing to do with finding the right partner. Your attraction is about your biology, and it's about trying to find the best mate to reproduce and have a child with. And nothing wrong with that. But I think what you're trying to find out is the best partner to be in love with. And the criteria for that are very different. For that, you need to throw away your list. You need to throw away your ideas of attraction even. And you need to be able to learn to connect with vibration, with the energy, with the consciousness of the being who you are with, which means learning to connect with yourself first at a deeper level, and then you can connect with another being at a deeper level as well. When you connect with your soul, you will recognize their soul. People talk about wanting to find their soulmate. Well, to find your soulmate, you've got to first find your soul. Because if you don't know what that feels like, then you won't know how to connect with another person at a soul level. So now it becomes just this, fashionable, whimsical thing. I want to find my soulmate. It's ridiculous. You're not going to find your soulmate. You're going to find someone who you're attracted to, or someone who fits your list. And I'm sorry, those usually are not soulmates. They're more karmic mates. They're people with whom you're going to have heartbreak. They're people with whom you're going to suffer. That's what you want? Go right ahead. But if you want to find your soulmate, this soul is the doorway to that soul. You will feel the resonance. You will feel the connection. You will feel that you're on the same plane. And when you are, then the other things won't matter. Whether they're taller than you or shorter than you, whether they've got a little weight or they don't have any weight, whether they're rich or they're poor, you will be able to look through all the layers of imperfection because you have found someone who has the resonance of you in them. That is to say that when you look at them, you see you. And when they look in you, they see themselves. I don't mean that you're the same. I don't mean that you're clones of each other, but that you're at the same frequency or level of development. Just like a 10th grade student and a 10th grade student can talk a similar language, right? And a first grade student and a first grade student will talk a similar kind of language. Similarly, people with a similar resonance will be able to talk with each other at a much deeper level, and their relationship will have a tendency to last a lot longer and be more successful and fruitful in what they're trying to create through partnership. Does that make any sense?
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, in the faith community, actually, they talk about this idea of being equally yoked. And the idea of being equally yoked is having a partner that has an equal amount of faith as you have. And what's similar there is this whole idea of like the similar level of energetically being in touch with your own soul, or being in touch with your experience of, of life, what God is.
I'll tend to differ. And I tend to differ from a lot of people in a lot of things, so don't mind me on saying that. What I'm trying to get at is that it's not just about having a similar faith. You could be of a similar faith. You could be equally devout in that faith. And I've been there, done that. And I found that even that didn't quite work. What I found is that you've got to be at a similar level of consciousness. So, for example, if you are, whatever your faith might be and whatever your understanding might be, but it's how you deal with the world, it's how you deal with people, it's how you think, it's how you go through life. That resonance is very different than the external one of what you believe in, or what, for example, I have this set of beliefs and you have that set of beliefs and now we are a good match. No, I don't believe so. It's a lot deeper than that. You see, these constructs are created to make it easy for people. But if you really want depth in your life, and if you want true love in your life, then you need to be true to yourself and to the other person. Now, that involves things like vulnerability. Yes, it does. And yes, it involves dropping the layers of all your pretensions. And it involves being able to show yourself to your partner as you are, with your deepest, darkest fears, with your deepest insecurities, with all the stuff, the shadows of your life, and still be loved with all of that. So it's, on one hand, the vulnerability to show that aspect, but also on the other hand, it's the spiritual maturity and evolution that you have made in the course of your life. So you cannot look at a person just purely on the basis of what they think or believe, because I can think and believe a lot of things, but it doesn't mean I live them. Where do you actualize? Where do you walk your talk? That's what's going to matter, and that's what's going to ultimately determine the quality of life you're going to have with this person. See, their body is not going to determine the experience you're going to have with them. That is to say, the experience of living with them and partnering with them. Their looks are not going to make that difference. Their mind, their intellect is not still going to make that difference. Their emotionality is not going to make that difference. It is the quality of where they've arrived at in their consciousness, in their way of being in the world. A practical example is you're thrown a challenge in your life, an obstacle happens. Let's say, there's a car accident. Now, how do you respond? How do you react? There's a crowded traffic jam. How do you respond? What happens? What's your level of consciousness? Someone hurts you or offends you. How do you respond? I'm going to bash this person up. I'm going to show them, teach them a lesson. Or are you in a place of compassion? Are you in a place of calm and composure? These are the things that show where you're at in your level of consciousness. That's what I mean by that. I'm not talking of something esoteric. It's revealed through your thoughts and words and actions.
It's really interesting because as you were sharing that, I was reflecting on myself and where I meet people at. And as somebody, I'm so dedicated to loving myself and others as deeply as I can in each moment. And that's just, it's going to be a lifelong quest. And I express that in a smaller, kind of deeper circle. And I find that so much resonance and sort of the larger amount of resonance with people that are really committed to service. because it is this thing of, for me, love and service. Service is love in action.
Yes, absolutely. And I think our world has forgotten that. They become very, what can you do for me? What's in it for me? But the reality is, you cannot separate love and service. Love is about service. It is about, what can I do for you? How can I please you? How can I see you happy? What does it take? Right? If I can, and I don't mean you lose yourself and that you lose who you are. Of course, people can go to that extreme as well. It's about having a balance here. It's when two people do that for each other, when both people are looking out for each other. So even in terms of surrender, it's not about one person surrendering to another. It's about both surrendering to each other. It's about both looking out for each other. It's both wanting each other's happiness. That is what is actually love. But there's a beautiful saying in my language where actually it's from Sanskrit. Joy joy pyaro bhave soy bhave moy. That what my beloved likes is what I like, and what I like is what my beloved likes. Now in this circular movement of energy, you'll find there is no winner or loser. What you like is what I like is what you like.
Rohit, thank you so much. Being with you is like living in a Sufi poem. Such a delight. And I want to ask you, as we tie up, I want to ask you what for you is great love.
To me, the greatest love of all is divine love, is the love of God. There is no greater love that I have found in this world. There is no more lasting, more consistent, more profound, more deep, more passionate, more beautiful love than that. Now, to me, that's the archetype. That's the model. And from that archetype and from that model, I strive to bring that into the world, into every interaction that I have. I fail often, but I strive to bring that into the world, into my relationships, and to make it as much of that. The way I am loved is the way I strive to love. So I think we all need a model. And Carl Jung talked about archetypes because archetypes influence how we are in the world. If your archetypes are those of, being a victim, or your archetypes are those of being some kind of a badass kind of person, then that's how you're going to be, because they're going to influence your consciousness. But if your archetype is the most beautiful source of all, then, because I don't carry these conceptions of God as being some judgmental person or some sending people to hell. No, to me, it's the source of beauty. It's the source of all attractiveness, the source of all joy, the source of all love. So when we look at from that perspective, now I'm tapping into the source, the most pure, the most beautiful source, and bringing that into this world. That to me is the great challenge of being here, learning how to do that. And it may take many lifetimes to perfect it, but it's a worthy process.
Oh, that's beautiful. I also want to ask you what for you respect is, or a great amount of respect. I actually love the word reverence, which is by definition deep respect.
So I think you're right. Reverence goes a lot deeper than just respect. I can respect someone, for who they are and what they do. But when I have reverence for that person, there is a divine quality to that. And that comes from a much deeper place. Respect is where I can intellectually understand. And to me, that's a very important thing. I think when people get together as friends or as partners, respect is fundamental. And especially for men, I think it makes a big difference that they are respected by their partners. If they're not respected, then that relationship will not last. Certainly it will not be fulfilling for anyone. But if you can take it and go deeper into that, it's about reverence. Reverence is really about being able to, it's an aspect of adoration. And it's adoring at such a deep place that I see you in the fullness of who you are. And I revere and honor and celebrate you as you are. To me, there is no greater expression of love.
Beautiful. So, Rohit, please, if there's anything else that you wanted to share and tell our listeners how they can learn more about you and enter into your world.
Well, I think the simplest way would be to go to lovingsoulfully.com, where they can download a free copy of my book, Loving Soulfully. It's in color, the downloadable version. And besides that, if they're interested, then come over to my website and take a look at some of the other things I'm doing at rohitjuneja.com or lovingsoulfully.com. I'm very passionate about this work and about sharing this information because it's taken a lifetime to figure out some of these things. And I feel very honored when I can share them with someone who is receptive and who gets it.
Rohit, thank you so much for joining us. I just want to appreciate you for your depth of seeing and witnessing is at such a profound level for everybody, really. I remember at a conference that I met you at, you cluing into me and how I was responding to the group and all the noise around, and actually pulling the group outside so that I could sort of have a beautiful, calm space to be able to do my share. And I thought to myself, I haven't met very many people that were so aware of my level of sensitivity. And that really comes from your depth of being able to see and to witness. And I see you doing it again and again with people throughout life. And you're such a gift. So thank you so much for your beautiful presence and for being with us here today.
Thank you, Carrie. And it's been an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Create Love podcast. Sending you so much love.